Welcome to the Clean Power Hour Live. I'm Tim Montague. Today is June 13th, 2025, and we are here to give you the latest and greatest in solar, wind, and battery news with my co-host, none other than the commercial solar guy, John Weaver. Welcome to the show, John.
Hey Tim, thanks for inviting me. And it seems like your StreamYard account's pretty terrible because you're a nice green color. It goes nicely with your blue eyes, though.
I
So
kind of
like
look like a ghost.
you look, I like it, Tim. You could like float away and ooh, there you go. So StreamYard, Tim needs help on the Clean Power Hour. It's too
I've
too
got a
much
green
green
halo. I
screen.
mean, I do
Yeah.
have a green screen. It's seeing the green screen. Oh, it does it really a lot
Yes.
around my hands.
Yeah. Look at that.
Um,
Look at that.
but anyway, life is
Yeah.
good, John. It's,
Good.
you know, some people are freaked out about what's going on in the United States, but I mean, in our industry, there's a lot of stuff going on in the United States, but I'm
Yeah.
talking about the solar industry.
All right. Yes.
Um, I just came off of being in Chicago at the Midwest Solar Expo for two and a
Mm-hmm.
half days, and I've arrived at a place of it's all going to be good. It could be better or less good, but it's not going to be horrible. And so if they pass the bill that they're trying to pass, the big great bill, the budget reconciliation bill, it does reduce the solar industry by 46, well, solar and wind by 46% between now and 2030. And that's a bad statistic. It's not going to help us achieve the energy transition in a timely manner. But on the flip side of that is that sooner or later, we're going to have a 50% solarized grid. It's unstoppable. So just hang in there. I say, ride on. Give me the solar coaster, ride on.
That comment, that thought, actually leads into one of my articles that I wrote this week for PV Mag. Last week, I was in New York City for the ACORE Financial Forum, the American Council on Renewable Energy. So
Cool.
New York City, we had 2 days of people speaking, and if you want to share one of the articles I wrote for PV Mag in the room for our review viewers, that'd be cool.
Oh,
But yeah, you just got to scroll down that document a little bit. You'll see ACORE, and but the thing that I heard from the people speaking, and this I think kind of had an impression on me, is that the biggest driver right now, like a big driver, not the biggest, but a big driver right now, is more demand for energy. So there's lots of people seeking more energy right now, it seems.
yes.
And I think it's a little less than some of the headlines suggest. And Wall Street thinks it's a little less than some of the headlines will suggest because there's lots of speculation. There's like hundreds of gigawatts of demand of data centers, but only a tenth of that is going to come through, much like the interconnection queue, probably.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, there still is growth, it seems. And this growth means that new capacity needs to be built. And everybody at this show was saying, listen, people just want capacity. They don't care where it comes from. They just want it, and they want it now. And everybody's saying, listen, solar and storage is pretty dang cheap, irrelevant of tax credits, irrelevant of um, the import tariffs. It's still pretty dang cheap. And then the next layer is that solar and storage is the fastest to be deployed. Everybody kept saying that gas turbines had challenges and might not be getting deployed in new volume until the end of the decade. Like everything that's being installed through the end of the year is like accounted for. And so for instance, these two, Sandia and Jim
Yep. Yep.
from Invenergy, Jim Murphy from Invenergy, like
Yep.
holy crap. And then EDP Renewables, like so we just had like two awesome people to start off day two. And both of these people, if you read in this section, they're like, listen, more capacity is coming. And it's going to be solar and storage. It's going to be driven by solar and storage. And so from their perspectives, first off, they want to pound getting projects started right now. So if you're an EPC and you have resources, you might be able to sign some pretty quick contracts with some pretty big companies and start construction just to make sure stuff is happening. And these two people, who are leaders of some of the largest renewable companies on earth, were like, hey, this is happening. We're going forward. Yeah, we really would like to see the ITC stay. And no, we don't like this foreign thing. And no, we don't like the 60-day start. And
Yeah.
yes, we should have a construction start versus construction finish for the ITC law. But the passion, the belief that this is just going to go forward, that we're still going to be building utility scale solar and storage, and that it is the number one resource was solid. And these two, Sean and Taurus, so Taurus and Toland, Sean Toland from Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners, again, one of the world's largest investors in renewables.
Yeah.
His perspective was twofold. It was really nice to see. He's like, first off, I've been in the US for a decade and people on my team longer. And we've seen the US grow, be a mature environment, or mature renewables industry for a decade. And we've seen the solar coaster and we've seen it in the country. And from Toland's perspective, we've seen it globally. And he said something really smart. He goes, as a global investor, and you can see it right there, you have to have a broader perspective and realize that there are challenges everywhere. And we, as greenfield investors who are globally conscious, we're used to taking on these risks. And so he goes, you know what? The US is rough and tumble right now, but that's just the nature of Earth. And
Yeah.
and we're okay with it. So this feeling of, I loved it. This feeling of F it. We're going through it, we're building it, and there's gonna be challenges and we're gonna deal with it, matched what you said to start the show. And I heard it over and over from people on stage. And it was, everybody was questioning things. They're like, we don't know what's coming next. You know, it's different. And we hope the US doesn't lose its leadership position. But they were all bullish, they were all aggressive. And it makes me feel about the 20 megawatt and above space very strongly. 20 megawatt AC and above space in the US very strongly.
Yeah, I think
It's,
the contraction will be harder on the residential market if they end the ITC in 2025.
yeah,
That will be a serious blow to residential solar. There's no doubt about it. Will residential solar exist? For sure. There are some people that are going to get solar whether or not there's a tax credit. It will
absolutely.
reduce their power bill. It just won't have as quick a payback period. And the states have levers too, John, that they
Mm-hmm.
can pull. And I interviewed Doug Scott, who's the chair of the ICC. That's our PUC here in Illinois. And we talked about this. And Doug reiterated something else that you referenced, and that is that some of these large data center projects have multiple applications in because they're not 100% sited in a specific location. They're trying to figure out where they're going to go to, just like solar farms do. And so there's a lot more congestion in the queue than is actually going to get built. But the levers that the states have are very important. Illinois, I think there was a story in PB Magazine about the Midwest Solar Expo. Check that out.
Mm-hmm.
It's not on our docket, but it called Illinois a top 7 state. I call Illinois a top 10 state. It's a top community solar state. There was just a report out from ILSR, the Institute for Local Self-Reliance out of Minnesota, that ranked Illinois number 1 in community solar nationally. We were the only state that got a B. No state got an A. It's an ABCD. There were several Bs, including New York and Massachusetts, and then there were a bunch of Cs and Ds. But for larger solar, including community solar, for sure, there's growth ahead. And there may be consolidation, of course, but it's like, we think of us on a diet. Okay, we're going to lose some fat and gain some muscle, and we'll be stronger and better. And we are going to continue to grow a green grid. And we're going to 10x the amount of solar on the grid in the United States, people. So buckle up and get serious, right? Start developing projects. Don't run. Don't be afraid. Don't get distracted by the noise. This is a good time to double down.
If you're going to take that risk, I mean, using the word double down insinuates a risk, and you got
There's
to
risk
have,
in everything.
yeah. And so if you're going to take that risk and double down, this is that moment where a lot of people are, I got emails, Tim, very interesting, for the first time, with people wanting to sell assets that they've developed after 2028. So if you're someone with a long vision,
Hmm.
there are going to be assets that may be valuable post ITC. And that represents change. That represents people thinking about how this is going to evolve. And maybe
Were
those
the
assets.
Are they assets that have already reached COD or
No,
not?
no, no. The two emails I've seen, they had proposed COD of 2029, both
Uh-huh.
of those.
Yeah.
And so this is an evolving moment where people are making judgment calls.
Yeah.
And if a lot of people run, I guess this is that moment when Warren Buffett said, when everybody else is scared, don't be. When everybody else is greedy, don't be. And, if everybody else is scared right now, maybe it's a time to settle yourself, focus, double down, and, be in it. If this is your career, be in it and go. Because this might be that moment. So,
Yeah. Do you want to talk about your project of the week?
sure.
Okay.
Talk with a nice little cute end phase system that we built. I was very happy about it. It was just clean and nice. So this is our new residential company. That's not our new residential company. This is Whaling City Solar, us working through things. I was very happy with the quality of this install.
Mm.
The roof was a little older than we were happy with, but the customer wanted it on his roof and he believes in the length of it. I've been working with these envoys. So the box on the right, the Enphase box to the far right, is an
Hmm.
Enphase envoy. That's their kind of control system. It's
Hmm.
funny, they say they have micro inverters that are on each module, but then they
Hmm.
still have another big box that's
Mm.
almost the size of an inverter
It
that you
is.
got to put down there. Yeah, so whatever, such is life. But that's the envoy, and the envoy is nice though. It allows you a control system, and within that, I can limit the output of a system. So, for instance, we have a few residential projects that have a grid interconnection limitation. However, the customer's electricity demand is double, and they have batteries, and they have this, and they have this. So, we recently submitted for a 20 kW project, 18.9 actually, and the grid limitation is 13.05 kilowatts of solar output max.
Right.
So using the PSC, the control system that's within the Enphase,
Yeah.
we were able to derate the
Hmm.
maximum output.
Yeah.
And then that means no transformer upgrades, no this, no that. And we're using batteries to capture clipping, feed it back into the house after the sun goes down. And so it's kind of, it's just kind of nice. And then if you go through these couple of images, there's just a nice clean. I took the picture of the grounding just because I like the look of the nice grounding. Those are
Do you
the
know
end
what? Do
phase
you know what
inverters.
racking that is?
This is going to be Snap and Rack. That's our
I was gonna
default
get.
product.
Yeah, I guessed right.
Yeah, yeah. I like their. So this is a nice splice between two rails
Hmm.
to keep the grounding. Those little
Yep.
gold-colored clips for the grounding. And I don't know, it's just a nice, clean, simple little project. Oh yeah, we took this picture because I liked. This is a heat pump, the white
Hmm.
plastic. They have a heat pump down below, and that's the path for the heat pump. I love that we snuck our conduit,
Hmm.
tucked it in right next to it.
Nice. Yeah.
Kind of kept it clean. Um,
Good clean
yeah,
look.
yeah, it's just a nice little. And if you scroll down a tiny bit, there's a couple other images. Um, yeah, so some seg modules, decent price. That's what the customer wanted. Little junction box on the roof. The snap and rack product, I like how it has space to put the wiring inside of it, so our
Yeah.
wire management is clean. So thank you, snap and rack. Good product there.
Yeah, I
So
agree. I like good integrated wire management is key.
yes, wire management's great. So that's
What are
my
you buying
project of the week.
modules for these days, John? I'm just curious. Do you know?
It depends. It ranges. It's been going up. Segs were in the lower 30-cent range. Then we have like say Hyundai and Jinko that are in the upper 30. Then we have next level stuff that can be 30, 45 to 65. If you get the eight, um, just depending on the product. If we're going with like the Rex, the Alpha Pures, those
Hmm.
can be a little more expensive.
Yeah.
But it varies. Like for instance, we had a warehouse that was invaded, I guess, or by customs, and it was apparently unrelated to solar. But we lost access to our segs for 2 projects, and we switched to either Hyundai's or Jinko's because that's what was available for like the 2-week window. Because we had a scheduled installation for 2 resi projects and no modules. So it's
The warehouse was rated by ICE or by who?
customs. I was
Oh,
told customs, but I was also told it was unrelated
uh-huh.
to the solar modules. I was told the warehouse raid, someone else
Sure.
may have been selling something out of the warehouse. It wasn't solar panels. So it's
All right.
project of the week. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. We got a story here in Energy Storage News, which is the PV Magazine. Is that the PV Magazine?
No,
Yeah.
no.
No.
This is
Okay.
competing. This is energy
Oh,
storage
okay.
news.
Because
This is PV Tech.
their name is also very similar, right?
Yeah. So PV Mag went with ESS-news.
Okay.
They're energy storage news,
Yeah.
but this is the PV Tech battery arm. So,
Okay.
there's
So
2 companies.
Hythium LGES
Yes.
begins U.S. manufacturing of dedicated battery storage projects. Hythium is a joint venture?
Lithium is actually, no, it's Chinese manufacturer. They're a really big company.
Okay.
The new thing they're doing here, though, is a joint venture with LG.
Yeah.
And
10
and
gigawatt hour battery module and system factory in Texas.
yes, so I think it's 5 gigawatts each, 5 gigawatts for modules and 5 gigawatts for completed systems. So I think it's really a 5 gigawatt plant. What I really thought was interesting about this, and the reason I brought it up, is that first off, they're expecting it to be finished and completed this year. And if this building is able to output 5 gigawatt hours a year of battery storage systems, so full on systems,
Yeah.
roughly this year, I think we're estimating 45 to 55 gigawatt hours of capacity to be deployed. So this one facility could knock out 10% of US demand. And I think that's pretty sweet. I would also, though, estimate that 10% number, it's going to go down because our capacity that we're going to install is going to go up. So while it may meet 10% that we need this year, next year it's only going to be 8%. And then the year after that, it's going to be 7%. But for now, this factory turns on at the end of the year. It's pretty awesome. It's going to be a big facility. Now, lithium being a Chinese manufacturer,
Yeah.
it might cause an issue because we have a lot of challenges going on. And I don't know. I don't know what that means. But so I hope we don't lose them, or maybe they build the factory and then they flip it to a US investor or something.
Yeah.
But I hope we don't lose it, this
Yeah.
factory. But
China's
it's
on
just
the short list of countries that the big beautiful bill is trying to hurt,
yes.
we could say.
So,
But
so
you
yeah.
know,
So I like it. Big factory.
I just think if you want manufacturing in the US, you have to lean into the energy transition because that's a big part of the opportunity. Batteries for stationary, batteries for cars, solar panels for rooftop, for utility, obviously. And what other segment of our global economy is growing as fast? Okay, AI data centers, but it's that and that. And what else? What else are we going to make in America, John? Like, we're not going back to clothing manufacturer or furniture manufacturer or, so many things in our lives, right? We just cannot be competitive. Um, tech, high tech manufacturing, I think, is where it's at, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, China, other places around the world, they look at this industry as a thing to do to boost their economy. Like China looks at renewables not only as a thing they have to do, but to boost their economy, literally for the purpose of boosting the economy. So,
Yeah.
so not
Yeah,
trivial.
you see right here in this story, it's talking about some of the gyrations that the manufacturers are going through.
Yeah.
LG had originally planned to open a dedicated factory in Arizona for LFP, but instead opened opted to retool production lines for EV batteries at existing plants in Michigan and a strategic rebalancing of production capacity. So many gyrations, so many gyrations. That's got to be very painful for the manufacturers. I feel bad for them. I feel bad for anybody impacted by the chaos, but these manufacturers are investing billions of dollars. What was the figure SEIA put out? Like $350 billion is at stake if we crush the IRA, right? That means jobs, it means taxes, it means the energy transition. I mean, supply chain. We had so many supply chain woes, right? During COVID. Have we forgotten, John, all of a sudden, like that we actually want to make this stuff onshore so that we don't have to ship it across the ocean? Somehow we forgot that.
Well,
It's crazy.
I mean, there's another little gorilla sitting on our shoulders, on our back right now, and the fact that we literally a war just kind of kicked off in the Middle East last night.
Yes, it
Um,
did. Israel
and
bombed Iran.
Iran, yeah, and
So how do you think that affects the energy industry?
price of oil shot up 10% maybe. Um, so supply chains, um, how's China going to react to one of its close trading partners, a strategic partner, being attacked by Israel? Um,
Oh,
that's a thing. China buys a lot of oil direct from Iran because it benefits China because they get cheap oil and because it goes around sanctions, and that's a close partner. And Iran isn't within their sphere, not their direct sphere, but they're a close partner. And so I don't know, if it could affect supply chain because we already had the Houthis, who are a direct group who are supported by the Iranians, who are shooting
mm-hmm.
missiles and drones across ships going into the Red Sea.
Mm.
And I know of a company who had solar modules on a shipping container that was shot at or struck or slowed, and they're like, yeah, we had a 1 month, couple week slowdown because our modules couldn't go through the Red Sea or got stopped or something. So we're living within a complex world. There's a lot of people who are working very hard to work through these challenges as professionals like shipping and getting things moved because that's their job. And now they're pushing hard. But that's going to be upward pressure on pricing. A shipping container used to cost 3 grand. Now it's going to cost 10, 15 grand. Um,
Shipping
you know,
container, just the container, you mean, or
to
container?
move a container from China to the United States
Okay.
used to cost 3 grand, irrelevant of what's in it. That's just
Mm.
the cost of one container.
Mhm.
Now they're double, triple, 5x. During COVID, they were over 10K for a shipping container across the sea.
Yeah.
So we're going to have, there's dynamics. We're in the midst of it. The solar coaster's on, and we're in the energy industry. There's an energy war still going on in Europe, or at least the initiation. It was initiated as an energy war.
Yeah.
It's complex. We got a lot going on. So
You mean the war in Ukraine?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then maybe funnily enough, the very next article on our list is an energy war that didn't go against us. But
Talking
there's
about
a
Texas?
yes, sir. So
Yeah, I'm
it's
ready to put that on
complexities.
screen.
Yeah.
This is Matia's story in PV Magazine. Anti-solar bills die in Texas House. Legislation that
Yes.
would kill renewable energy in Texas failed to progress in the state's House of Representatives. I'll note that Texas installed 11 gigawatts, I think, last year, just in the one state. It is the largest solar market in the United States.
It's pretty awesome.
Mm. We installed 2.4 gigawatts in Illinois.
That's pretty awesome too.
It's not bad.
Yeah. So 3 bills in Texas were put out. They had a lot of restrictions on how solar could be deployed. They were requiring things like solar, like if you built solar it had to be coupled with energy with gas so that you
Yeah.
had guaranteed 24/7 uptime. And that was pretty interesting. The the laws, the fact that they all died though was interesting. And in the interim, while they were dying, the governor of Texas multiple times came out with communication saying, hey, Texas is an all of the above. Texas is a renewable plus oil state now.
Mm,
And so that was pretty good.
mm.
Um,
Very interesting.
yeah. So I thought, I was surprised. I was like, this is gonna hurt. But we're crossing precipices because of the capacities that we're deploying. Because Tim, it's coming down to money. And if it's coming down to this money and solar and storage are able to push the money, then that says we're reaching a new precipice. That's similar to those people at ACORE. They're talking about a post incentive world. They're talking about a utility scale demand driven world. And you got to have it now. So we're moving beyond it.
And ERCOT needs the power. These two sentences say a lot here, right? Texas would be far more vulnerable to grid outages if new generation were limited to a small number of facilities. The simple fact is Texas needs every resource on the grid to keep prices low for consumers and meet the demands of future population and business growth. Yeah. I mean, those outages that Texas has had are the real deal, and they've come close to being much worse disasters than they turned out to be. So, I am not surprised that the governor is taking a quiet stand. He may not say the word solar and storage, right? But we can read between those lines. Anything else about this story you want to say?
Nothing other than I like to hear that Texas is going solar and storage and that the politics tilted in our favor and held. And that speaks of the size, capacity, and importance of the industry.
Yeah,
And so that gives me some confidence. Like it.
we
Made
should
me
probably
happy.
be selective about what else we've got a big docket. What else should
Oh yeah.
we talk about?
Well, I'll talk about a high level thing. Let's talk about batteries a tiny bit more, just because I don't know. I'm really interested in the volumes of batteries that are getting deployed, and we have like 3 articles right there. But I'm going to start an article soon on curtailment, and maybe you could click on that PV Magazine article, 2528 solar power curtailment rises in California. And I've done a little math, and I think that I think I mean, we're seeing it, but I want to write an article and we'll do some math. I'm going to talk with a professor I work with at Occidental University out in California, physics professor, and I'm going to do math and figure out this curtailment because we're seeing curtailment go up. However, I think that the amount of curtailment that's happening in California, the growth is much slower than the amount of new solar and storage. And I believe that batteries are now lowering the volume of curtailment and enabling more solar to run. And so we might even calculate curtailment as the same amount, but it's a lower percentage of overall generation now. And so I think we get a front row seat, similar to people in South Australia, the South Australian state, which has a massive volume of solar. We're getting a front row seat of the energy transition occurring. And right now, we're getting the next round of it with batteries occurring with California on the grid. And this chart represents something, and I don't know what it represents yet. It represents curtailment. I mean, I know that. But what does it represent in the long game? Does this represent an opportunity? Because there's not a huge amount of energy here. Like this, like I did the math. So last year, in 24, CAISO curtailed 3.4 million megawatt hours. I mean, that sounds like a lot. It's up 29%. But if you run the math the state, let's see, what's the total that they did for total energy? It's like 1,000. This is like 1% of energy.
Mhm.
Like I have the math somewhere. I did it and I wanted to show off. But if you then do the math on the amount of batteries that are on the grid, we actually have enough batteries in California to 100% soak up all of the curtailed electricity,
Yeah.
utility scale alone. So there's some dynamics happening here. There's growth, there's batteries, there's this curtailment that everybody's been crying about that really is a trivial issue. And so I'm having fun watching and learning and reading and just watching the way they work. Because a commercial solar guy, we're gonna try and partner up with somebody and do battery EPC work. We have good civil experience, we have good electrical experience in house, and we now have a new partner. So so just watching this stuff. I mean, you've seen me talking about batteries for the last 6 months. Just I've been kind of really interested in them, but just cool. So watching California, watching this curtailment, watching how the batteries go, I think that's a very key thing for us to look at. And then watching the same thing in Texas, because batteries are now taking over as the marginal price setter for many times, and that used to be gas. And gas was the thing that could always come in and buy the next electricity rounds. But now batteries are doing it from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. That means batteries are taking over the grid. Solar has already taken over the grid from 7 a.m., 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. Now
Yeah.
batteries are extending that. So we have a full 12-hour daytime solar plus storage economy in Texas and California coming. In California already, but it's coming in Texas. And so
Yeah.
so I think that's a big topic, and I'm going to try and do some research and learn better on it.
Can I talk about Gibson City, Illinois?
Heck yeah, that's a big power plant, man.
Very interesting story. I just stumbled upon it today. And Gibson City is a small farm town 40 minutes north of Champaign, where I live. And a company called Earthrise Energy is developing a 270 megawatt AC, which is, I don't know, 350 DC, something like that. Got to get this on screen. Can't find StreamYard. Here we go. Share screen. Earthrise. Okay, so the story is that Earthrise raised 630 million for its 270 megawatt solar plant in Gibson City, and what they're doing that I think is really cool is this same company owns a peaker plant in this vicinity, and so they have an existing substation there and interconnection to MISO, and they're using that interconnection as an on-ramp for a bunch of this solar energy, and thereby expediting their ability to get an interconnection agreement with MISO, which is notably horrible. And this was a theme at the Midwest Solar Expo. You know, there's 3 to 5 year queues in MISO, both at the distribution and transmission levels. So kudos to Earthrise for thinking of this. And I just think there's a lot of subtle innovation like this, John. I mean, this is not rocket science, right? They're going, oh, yeah, we've already got this fleet of peaker plants. They're only running 10% of the time. We could put more juice on the grid, probably, if we built a big solar farm, which can sell power to the grid cheaper than the peaker plant can, right? The peaker plant juice is expensive.
Yep.
Because it's only running 10% of the time. And so that's it. It's I don't know how many acres the project is, but it's a lot of electricity. Yeah, there's just a little more there about the Illinois market, 7th in the country.
So that what they're doing there, and that strategy is super smart, in my opinion. I saw an article recently, the strategy of adding new capacities that complement the existing capacity. So, for instance, these peaker plants that generally only run in the evening period or cold periods when they're needed. Again, they have 10%. Some of them have a 5% capacity factor. At most, they're 15%. But there are.
And if you ever wondered, this is what a peaker plant looks like. These rectangular buildings here is the peaker. These are
So there's
natural
two of them.
gas. Yep, these are natural gas turbine generators. Their smokestacks are quite low to the ground, maybe 20 feet tops. And then there's a substation. Now, some of these peaker plants have many more turbines. This is a relatively small one. I don't know how many megawatts. I'm guessing 2 megawatts, but I don't know. And there's a ethanol plant next door. And then they've already got a plot for a new substation they're going to build here for the
Nice.
solar farm, called out on Google, which I thought was cool, but who knows where this, I mean, the solar farm is obviously going to be much bigger.
Yep.
Several, maybe around 1,000 acres. I don't know.
Well, if you think 350 megawatts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, 1,500 acres.
Yep. Divide that by 4. At least that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah. So again, as I was saying though, in California, they were saying that they have tens of gigawatts, maybe even hundreds. I don't think it's hundreds, but tens of gigawatts on interconnections that are underutilized. So great idea. Super smart.
Okay.
All right.
We're going to close with China launches world's first grid-forming sodium-ion battery storage plant.
Nah, I like this one a little better. Across the United States, residential electricity prices are set to increase by an average of 13%.
Yuck.
And some as much as 26. And I thought that was both terrible and great. It's terrible because this is like real human beings. Like, that sucks.
So we're looking at the EIA, the Energy Information Administration.
Yep.
Website, in-depth analysis.
So you notice the price of gas, nice and flat. Gasoline's looking down. Heating oil looking down. But electricity moving along, and it's going above the CPI, above inflation. That's that second value. And then if you scroll to the bottom of this article, there's another chart that shows us on a state level. So regionally, you can kind of see, oh, this is a good one. This shows what people are spending per year, gaining on $2,000 a year of electricity. But then you go down a little bit further, the next chart, you can see that it's varied, highly varied on a state basis.
You can see that dip from COVID, right? That's where the gasoline expenditure went way down.
Yeah.
Because people weren't traveling.
Yep.
So fascinating.
And then here, check this out. Like, first off, you see Pacific regions already expensive. And over the last 3 years, it's up 26%. Look at New England, the most expensive region, total region in the nation, going to jump another 19%. Mid-Atlantic, these are like Delaware's, Washington, Virginia states, jumping. You see right there in the middle, that U.S. average, 13%. That's pretty big over 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So this, if anything, this will support the residential solar market. It'll knock a year off. It'll knock 2 years off your IRA, your ROI. So yes, we're going to lose some incentives, it seems. Price of electricity will go up. We're also going to lose some cost competition, maybe, because hardware costs might get tariffs. But we'll also lose some competition in that these lease companies are going under. Mosaic is gone. Sonova's gone now. So that's going to be a different dynamic.
Yep.
And then we're going to have to bark at our distributors and be like, hey, guys, this Resi gear, I know those modules are nice, but I'm not paying 60 cents for modules anymore, friend. You want to sell those? You need to have an ROI that's going to be reasonable for my customers. And, I'm just going to have to work it that way. And I think that we, as a small residential company that is backed by a commercial company that has existing infrastructure, it'll make it work. I think we can make it handle. I think we can handle it. So So that I thought that was interesting. That those price increases are going to come to utility scale. Those prices increases are going to come to commercial. So price of energy, if it keeps outpacing inflation, concurrent with solar and storage, at least holding flat pricing, if they can keep going down, that would be amazing. And that'll carry us. That'll carry us for decades out.
Yeah.
So price increase is terrible for people on average, good for us, bad for the average family. But maybe it's good that we pay a little more for energy because, listen, if we don't have carbon taxes built in, we're getting away cheap anyway, and we're stealing from our kids. So one way or another, we got to manage this. So that's it, Tim. That's my news. I got boatload more,
I
but
know
we
you
only got
do.
so much time, man.
No
There,
shortage of news.
we got new perovskite record. Did you see that one? The next article, 829 watts for a utility scale module. You know, got so much news we could talk about. Good stuff going on.
Yep.
Challenging,
Yep.
challenging. This week we might start to see a version of the document coming from the Senate.
Yep.
This next week. So we'll see. I'm hearing hopeful that the House bill, the terrible one, might get pulled back on a couple of items. So we won't have this 60-day thing. We might have 2028, but I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. I'm not that politically connected, and all my senators vote a certain way. So call your senators if you live in a state that has Republican senators, and give them some feedback about your opinion on the IRA and whether you think it matters, because that can create value for us. And those are the people voting right now. Republican senators, 54 of them. Give them a phone call. 54 people.
For sure. Call your senators. Let them know you care about the energy transition. It means jobs and tax revenue. I did a great interview with SER, Strategic Economic Research, small company here in Bloomington Normal. With it's the Loomis family. Dave Loomis is the founder. I had Ethan Loomis, his son, on the show, and we're talking about how utility solar and wind projects have economic impacts, mostly tax revenue for local counties. And for the school districts in a rural county, it can be more than $1 million a year, just one utility project. That's a lot of money for these school districts that are generally hurting. So check it out at cleanpowerhour.com. Click on the Work with Tim tab. I am interviewing EPCs who want to transition into large C&I solar. If you are on that journey, reach out to me. That's one of the things I do. I am gasoline for that engine. And as always, John, how can our listeners find you?
Commercialsolarguy.com. That is our home. 508-499-9786. But commercialsolarguy.com. That's where I'm always at. Give us a call. We're located in the Northeast mostly. We're an EPC and a developer, so we can build your project from greenfield to the end. You can also find me on PV Magazine USA. It's where I write 8 articles a month. Try and teach the world a little, teach myself, and that. And Tim, what's your favorite sized EPC? Like, what's the key? Like, what have you found that you can help the most? Like,
Companies that are doing about 5 to 15 million in sales are a great sweet spot for me. And up to, I would say, 50 million. Above 50 million, you're going to hire some big fancy consulting firm. I'm a solarpreneur. I cut my teeth working for Continental Energy Solutions in Chicago. They're doing about 30 megawatts a year. So if you're in the, couple of megawatts of resi and light commercial, and you want to grab onto a couple more megawatts a year, I'm your guy. John, we have a little bit of a scheduling challenge ahead of us. So,
right.
Normally we do this every 2 weeks, but I am going to be sailing in the National Flying Scot Regatta on June 27th in 2 weeks.
Awesome.
If all goes well, if there's wind, it's happening at a lake in Illinois called Carlisle, which is 3 hours south of us here. And then the following Friday is the 4th of July holiday, so we can't do that. So maybe we do one next Friday, or we are going to wait 3 Fridays. I don't know. It's your call.
Well, I'm gonna make a suggestion that we move it to Thursday, the 26th, but we'll talk about it offline. We don't want our people bothered too much by our scheduling conflicts. Let's
Okay.
talk about solar panels and batteries and stuff. So cool. I hope you have a wonderful time on a lake doing sailing stuff. That sounds awesome.
With that, I'll say, let's grow solar and storage. Thanks so much, John.
Yep. So yep.